Hello and welcome to Lesson 7. Now in Lesson 7, we're going to animate shapes with shape tweens, use shape hints to refine shape tweens, animate gradient fills, view onion skin outlines, apply easing to shape tweens, create and use masks, understand mask limitations, and animate the mask and mask layers. Now, our final goal is to actually create this fire GIF. Right? So we're going to be creating this, and you will have this at the end of your time. Remember, as we go through, try to keep in mind the upper level concepts, items like the lesson overview that I discussed, and things I try to reference in some of the chat, or the bell work questions, because those concepts will move from lesson to lesson, and then when we start doing the overall lessons, they will be a requirement. They will come into play, I guess. So what you want to do is you want to open up the 07start.fla that starts us with this particular resource. Now, once again, recall that some of these things have been pre-made, so if you were doing something this on your own or something like this on your own, you would have to animate this and use some of your other things to actually create this before we bring it into animation. You'll notice the very first thing I do is I actually come over to frame 40. I make sure all of them go to frame 40. I click on all of them to make sure they're selected. And then I insert timeline frame. So I make sure that I have a frame all the way out to 40 that exists to start with. Then what I do is I lock down the text layer and I lock down the glow layer. And I click over here on keyframe or frame 40, and then I actually insert a keyframe, and that indicates, or insert timeline keyframe, and that makes sure that all the information is copied over into the new keyframe so we can make modifications. Now if you recall our animated GIF, you had the circumstance where the flame was moving. We are going to start that movement of the flame shortly once we begin working with those keyframes. Okay, now to give you an idea of what I did is, you'll notice as I take my playhead and I move it from frame 1, if you watch the flame, it actually gets larger. Okay, so what I did was I clicked down here on my last keyframe. Once I've clicked down here on the last keyframe, I then chose the free transform tool to kind of change the shape. Now, I will tell you, there we go. So I can come along here and I can make modifications to it. And I'm just kind of changing my shape. So what's happening is, this right here is a shape tween. The way I did that is I right clicked and I said motion tween, right? Make sure I have the right one. And then, yes, I want to create a shape tween, okay? So I'm going to create the shape tween, right? So I can remove it if I wanted to. So I'm going to remove it to start with. And what's going to happen is, since my flame is different on the last bit and this way on this bit, all I have to do is click here, right click, I want to create a shape tween, and what happens is whatever value is in this particular keyframe, whatever image is in this keyframe, it actually morphs the image in this keyframe to match this one. So if I come along here now, if I watch, see how it kind of changes? And that, remember our flicker effect before? That's kind of where we're moving in that direction. I can also take and click here, and if I wanted to, I could click off that bad boy right here, click here, and then, for instance, if I wanted to do something like that, right? And then if I come along in here, it's moving between the two, right? Now you'll see when we had the actual GIF, you had that flicker back and forth, so we can create more shape tweens to make that flick back and forth. Okay, so what I did at this point in time, capitalizing on that idea, if you recall that I inserted a keyframe down here, and then I created a shape tween the entire time. I morphed the way the flame appeared, and then it changed the shape from here to the end of the keyframe, which used to be here. Now what I did is I went through and I inserted a keyframe here, 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 well, obviously at all the places that you see keyframes. Then what I actually did, and before I did that, is I actually grabbed a hold of the last keyframe. I moved it all the way back so it shortened the animation, okay? Once I did that, I then inserted keyframes, and then I inserted shape tweens. Between each shape tween, I then made a modification between, so for instance, here's our old shape tween. We moved from here to there, right? That's our old shape tween. Well, now, since this flame was pointing to the right, I then inserted a shape tween here, clicked on a keyframe here, and then moved it back the other direction. So now it looks like it's flickering the other direction. Then I did similar, since it's now shape pushed towards the left. I then actually turn around, inserted the shape tween, made it now push back to the right. And so you get that kind of, and I think I overlapped it, but I thought it looked cool, so I kept it, right? So basically from here, you want to make sure to insert a number of tweens between, or shape tweens between frame 1 and frame 40, but you definitely get that really nifty flame effect. Okay. Now, when I did the flames, I went in and manually did each particular shape tween between 1 and 40. But let's say, for instance, if I wanted to push it out beyond 40, what I could do is I could actually take all these frames here and copy them, so it would just basically repeat and will be kind of a loop of the flame moving. That's another way to do that. I like making all the individual flames and kind of playing with it. I thought it was kind of cool. So it looks more, I would say it looks more unique. That's what I'm going to call it. All right, so the next step what we're going to do is, now that we have created this fire with all these, this flame bit, we're actually going to make a symbol for this so we can reuse it. So the very first thing you want to do is you want to highlight all the shape tweens right there. So I have all those highlighted, and then I can right click, right, and then I would choose cut frames. Now they all went away, and I know you might be frightened, right? So I want to do insert, and I want to do new symbol, and I'm going to call the symbol flame, right? And it's going to be a graphic symbol, okay? And it's going to put it into the library. So I'm going to push OK. The very first thing it does is it goes to a new symbol. You'll see up here at the top, scene 1 is where I'm going to be using it. Flame 1 is that symbol. I come in here and I can rename the layer flame, right? And then all I do is I click right here and I paste the frames, right? So what I've done is I've taken that flame and I've simply moved it here. Now, the interesting part about this is if I insert this flame multiple times, it's going to have the animation multiple ways. So for instance, if I go back over to scene 1 and I grab my flame and I bring my flame over here, my flame now inserts. That's super cool. The neat thing about doing it this way, as an example, if I take multiple flames, I should be able to put multiple flames over here, and then as they do, they all move. So if I was doing multiple candlesticks or something, I don't have to repeat that I don't have to repeat the effort of making each one of those symbols, each one of the animations individually. I can just multiple populate this and just continue to, which is pretty cool, right? Once you get all that done. So I'm going to just delete these extra, right? The neat thing about that is if I come beyond this and I want to add more information for this, I can now just put in that individual symbol. Now the next thing we're going to talk about is using shape hints. What happens when it actually creates that shape tween? It actually moves from one shape to the next shape, but sometimes it moves it in a weird way. And if I remember, I think I had one. This is all perfectly fine. And then all of a sudden, this one, right? I didn't purposely do this. I don't know why this did this, but this is a great example I couldn't necessarily duplicate. And we're going to do the shape hint. We're going to insert a shape hint that allows us to control that extra shape. All right, so to play with our shape hint, what we're going to do is we're actually going to double-click into our editor here, graphic symbol editor, and then we're going to modify shape, add shape hint. So we're going to modify and then shape and then add shape hint. And you'll notice that you'll have some tools here that will allow you to manipulate the shape. Okay, so modifying our shape hints, the way this works is we're going to add the shape hint for A. We're going to put it at the top. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add another shape hint and put it in B, right? and then we're going to move it to probe A and B. Then we're going to move it down here, right? And then you should have another A and B that's right in the middle. So you move A to the top and B down here. And you're doing that between your shapes, and that prevents that weird twist that we had. So there's an A and a B, and then another A and a B. So they know that it actually morphs between those two spaces. So the way I kind of work is, for instance, if I go, I'm going to go, let's see, I'm going to go here, right? And I'm going to do modify shape, and I'm going to add a shape hint. So there's my one shape hint for A. I then take that to the top, and then I'm still clicked on this cell, and I want to modify, and I want to do shape, and then I'm going to add shape hint. That's going to give me a B, so I put this all the way down at the bottom. So now I have an A up here and a B down here. Now what I do is I click on the next transition, right, because I had a shape tween. When I click on the next transition, I should have a B, which I move down here. Now you'll notice it'll turn green. That indicates that it does have a good transition to the B portion. And then I move this up A. That means that these two shapes morph equally, right? Now I don't have a shape tween here, so I still get it kind of odd. But you'll notice it moves smoother between the different shapes as it transitions. I should have ultimately inserted one for this particular shape tween and not the others, but that's okay. That gives you an idea that allows you to make it easier as it moves in the shape tween from shape to shape, right? Okay. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is we are going to turn on onion skinning, and onion skinning is cool. Okay, so if I'm looking down at I'm in my library, I'm in my graphic, and then what I can do is I'll look down all the way down at the bottom. I should have two superimposed boxes. That is the onion skinning. Looks just like this. When I click that on, what that does is that has an outline of the motions that the document's going to go through. So blue, you'll notice as I move through it, so blue is past, green is present. As I move as I move it through, right, I'm able to see green is kind of where it's going, and then so I'm able to see the movement of the shape between the two. So I've got a past, present, and a future. The blue marker is the number of past onion skins. The green marker, the number of future frames, right? And I can actually move these if I want to. I can grab a hold of, can I take a hold? No, I can't. Okay. So it says hold down Command Control while dragging either marker to move. So if I do like Control, can I grab it? Oh, it's not cooperating with me. But it allows me to see kind of how it's moving between elements. So I'm able to see what's transpiring over time as I make the changes. Which I think is pretty neat, right? And if I click on, and then I can actually change the colors. So if I do NACC preferences, edit preferences, so I want to see if I can edit preferences, and then the onion skin color is past, present, future, so I can change the colors of that if I want to, right? But that just gives me an idea of kind of how to see how it's morphing from place to place, so I know what's going on.